Yeah, I'm ready.
Thank you, Dr. Lokesh. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, Professor Sudarshan, sir. I take this opportunity to welcome all of you to this continued medical education webinar series hosted by the Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences, Karnataka. The intention of the Rajiv Gandhi University Health Sciences, headed by the Vice Chancellor and the Registrar, is to provide a platform for exchange of information with regard to containment, control, treatment, management of COVID-19. We have had a series of lectures which is continuing. Today, the speaker is Dr. Lokesh Alahari from the NPSP WHO project. Without wasting much time, I would invite Professor M.K. Sudarshan, Chairman, Technical Advisory Committee, Government of Karnataka, to please provide the opening remarks.
Yeah, very good afternoon to everyone. Honorable Vice Chancellor Dr. S. Sachidananda, the program coordinators Drs. B.J. Mahendra, M. Dayanand, and Rupashri, and all the participants. Today's presentation is by Dr. Lokesh Alahari, who is a WHO consultant to Government of Karnataka, and he has been into this COVID-19 containment work since January 2020. He is a member of the Technical Advisory Committee, and also he is working in the immunization program, the state COVID-19 immunization program. Now, today his presentation, I have seen the slides, and it is a little more in number, so one need not get perplexed by so many slides, but they are highly informative in nature, and they will be shared with RGHS for sharing it with all the participants and others via various modes. And he will be discussing primarily the Government of Karnataka guidelines, and also he will be referring to certain guidelines of Government of India, AIIMS, New Delhi, and others. I have informed him that this is more an academic body because it is from the university, so they will decide ultimately what to do in the given circumstances, whether it is in their regular institution or whether it is in their private practice or in their family practice. So they will take a call, but I can assure you that it is a highly informative lecture, and you can be rest assured that at the end of the day you will definitely be well informed about home isolation and also about COVID care center. See, this COVID care center was forgotten in the initial days of the second wave. Now it has come to its eminence or the prominence because COVID care centers are now required in certain situations. More about it, Dr. Lokesh will make the presentation. So with this introduction of Dr. Lokesh and his presentation, I now request Dr. Lokesh to deliver the lecture. Over to Dr. Lokesh.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much, sir, for the introduction. I would like to thank Honorable VC, sir, for arranging this lecture, and the organizing team at RGHS and ECHO India. Without wasting much time, we'll start with the presentation. I'll share my screen. So my screen is visible?
Yeah, visible.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. So as Dr. Sudarshan sir already outlined, so I'll be touching basically on the updated guidelines of Government of Karnataka. So whatever guidelines have been issued from the state government regarding home isolation and COVID care centers. So particularly regarding the recent guidelines which have come in view of the second wave, which is ongoing. So initially coming to the testing priorities, the COVID-19 testing protocol was recently updated by the state. Just to touch upon it, so all districts have been asked to prioritize testing for suspected COVID-19 cases, which are having fever, cough, cold, sore throat, difficulty in breathing, diarrhea, loss of smell, loss of taste, etc. So they'll be prioritized. Next is all cases of ILI and SARI. So as we all know, all the symptomatic cases should be first tested by RAT. If negative, then sample should be collected for RT-PCR also. So by RAT, because it will help in early isolation of the case if it is positive. If it is negative, anyway, we have a more sensitive test in the form of RT-PCR. And testing of all high-risk contacts, so that will be the priority. Pregnant women, if the date of delivery is within next 2 weeks. And suspected COVID-19 deaths, wherever COVID-19 is suspected among death, those will be prioritized. And emergency surgeries. In the recent guidelines, following the GOI ICMR guideline, it has been re-emphasized that testing is not required. In RT-PCR, test must not be repeated in any individual who had tested positive once, either by RAT or RT-PCR. No testing is required for COVID-19 recovered individuals at the time of hospital discharge, except in severe cases. No testing of interstate arrival. So Karnataka was doing interstate arrival testing for 4 states, which has been discontinued. And no random testing of asymptomatic persons in any of the populations. So the testing is now focused on the symptomatics, so as to say, and the primary contacts or the high-risk contacts of the symptomatic cases. So that is how the testing is prioritized. Coming to the update, which was also recently released last week, starting of treatment for symptomatics after swab collection and before receipt of RT-PCR test. So as you all know, there is some time lag. By the time RT-PCR test results come, sometimes it's within 24 hours, sometimes it is beyond 24 hours, particularly due to increased burden on the labs also, and also caseload on the testing teams in collection, shipment. In these processes also, there might be some delay. So considering that, it has been recommended that all symptomatics who have given swab for RT-PCR testing shall be started on tab ivermectin, vitamin C, and zinc. So if they test positive, the treatment would be as protocol. If negative, the doctor can take a call whether it is a syndrome-based treatment or it will be any other thing. So based on that, the treatment will be managed. And this website I just wanted to highlight where results will be available. So once RT-PCR test is given and the sample is sent, the Karnataka state government has created this website, the covidwar.karnataka.gov.in, where the results are being updated within 1 hour of labs updating these results on the ICMR portal. So this is for all the general public. We can communicate to everybody who are giving their samples that they can check their results on this website anytime. Also, one more thing is even the state case number, the code or the district code, the BU number or any district code will also be visible in this report for all the positive cases. So I have just put the link also for reference. So once a person is tested positive, so what is the algorithm? How do we decide? So once a person is tested positive, then there should be a triage to decide further course of action. Whether the person is suitable for home care, then person goes into home care or home isolation. If not suitable for home care, then asymptomatic or mild symptoms can go to CCC. or moderate or severe will be sent to DCHC or DCH as per state protocol, which is also the GUI protocol. Also, from home isolation or CCC, if the symptoms worsen, they can also be shifted to higher center. And also recently there has been a guideline that arrow mark the other way is also applicable. So I'll come to it also in the later slides. So permitting person in home isolation. Now, actually the second wave has become such that we are hoping that the people themselves stay at home so that those who are actually in need make it to the hospital, particularly to the oxygen beds and the ICU beds. But also we should be very judicious in letting a person to be at home. So that is also a very important decision, so that we don't allow a person to stay at home, then deteriorate and come to a hospital at a very late stage where managing might become very difficult. So that also is a very big responsibility on the triaging team. So only those who are asymptomatic or mild symptomatic shall be allowed to be in home isolation. They shall be oriented to the protocol of home isolation. They should be briefed properly. The health team of the district or BBMP, they should assess suitability of house. So this is one of the very important criteria which we managed to miss. But this is one of the important component, particularly in this way, when we are seeing that a person testing positive, by the time even the person gets to know, their family members are also turning positive. So, and once a person stays in isolation, if home is not suitable, invariably other family members also might get infected. So the triage, either physical triage can be done or telephonic triage. So either way, recently a circular has been sent that physical triage should be prioritized as much as possible through triage centers in every district, including BBMP, which has now established 48 triage centers across the city. Then dedicated telemonitoring link, which I think the step 1 is supporting in Bangalore, which is being expanded to other districts, and many districts to the district control room also. They are doing telemonitoring of the home isolation cases. The person shall report to health staff about their health status every day. So the person should be responsible enough to report back their health status. The person shall have pulse oximeter, which is very critical, digital thermometer, preferably blood pressure apparatus, glucometer with strips if diabetic, mask, gloves, sanitizer, etc. The release of person from home isolation shall be as per the existing discharge protocol, which has been recently updated from GUI and also Government of Karnataka. The home isolation, home care shall be with the knowledge of family members, neighbors, treating physician. So this is also one of the important criteria. So these are the critical things which are put out in the state protocol for home isolation. So I will just take you a little bit into detail of few of the aspects. So recently, a guideline has been issued, a circular has been issued to all the districts that mandatory physical triage should be done to ascertain severity of disease before admission. So this is particularly because every person who has tested positive, even though asymptomatic or mild, they are trying to come to hospital and get admitted, and that is not helping the others with moderate or severe symptoms to get admitted. So that is the issue which is still ongoing. So the triage center will decide whether the person is eligible for home isolation, first one, and whether the person really requires hospitalization, whether the person can actually be managed at home. Then also identifying hospital admission for moderate and severe cases. So the triage center refers only these cases for hospital admission. And rest of the cases, if home is not suitable, they can be sent to CCC so that our oxygenated beds are well utilized optimally. So initial assessment and medical triage. So after receipt of COVID positive person, the person shall self-isolate himself. So this is very important at home. And based on the circumstances, feasibility, logistics in districts, they can decide whether a physical triage is possible, whether they can send a mobile team and get the person here, or triage can happen at home, or through telephonic triage can be done. So all three are happening simultaneously based on feasibility. So the person should be asked regarding all the symptoms. The health staff should also assess presence of fever through thermal scanning, fingertip pulse oximetry, glucometer for RBS, blood pressure recording, and at triage center, they should also try to assess the BMI for any obesity, particularly weighing machine and stadiometer should be present at the triage center. So inquire for other comorbidities, because these comorbidities are also as important. They should be within good clinical control for the person to be in home isolation, and link the person to telemonitoring center for daily follow-up. For further daily follow-up of the person, telemonitoring through government or private agency can be arranged. So some persons might want to follow up through their private hospitals or the family physicians. That can also be allowed. If they want to get linked to the government center, that also can be done. So eligibility, the person shall be clinically assigned as symptomatic or mild case. Such person should have requisite facility at residence for self-isolation. The one more important criteria is a caregiver should be available on a 24/7 basis. So this is also very important. A regular communication link between caregiver and hospital is also a prerequisite. Fever, mild fever should be there or no fever. Oxygen saturation should be 94 or more. Elderly patients who are above 60 and those with comorbidity, as I already told, should be allowed for home isolation only after clinical evaluation by treating medical doctor, and their comorbidity should be under good clinical control. Otherwise, they can be shifted to CCC, where there is continuous supervision available through medical officer. Patients suffering from other immune compromised status also can be allowed home isolation after proper evaluation by the treating doctor. The person shall provide a signed undertaking for self-isolation that it is his responsibility, his or her responsibility to stay at home and take care and also report. The person shall agree to monitor his or her health regularly and also report to the district. Home isolation, home care shall not be applicable for pregnant women 2 weeks before expected date of delivery. Again, this is based on feasibility and based on district level positive cases which are coming and CCC's availability also. Home isolation, home care shall be allowed for lactating mothers after clinical evaluation, so they can be at home, continue the breastfeeding and also follow up regularly. Then requisite facility at home. So what does it mean by home suitability for home isolation? A separate well-ventilated room with a separate bath and toilet. So preferably attached toilet or a separate bath exclusively for the positive person should be there. The person shall stay in the identified room away from other persons. If the person does not fit to this criteria for home isolation also, the person should be shifted to CCC. So again, this is the common table which we have been seeing since last year very commonly, and this does not change much. The important criteria for mild, moderate, severe being the SpO2 levels. So for home isolation or COVID care center, the SpO2 should be 94 or more. DCHC, if it is between 90 to 93. If it is below 90, it should be DCH, where ICU beds are also available. Also, pulse rate should be less than 100 for home isolation and CCC. For DCHC, 100 to 120, and for DCH, if DCH more than 100. So blood pressure also, if it is less than 100 mm per Hg, they should be referred to DCH. So I'll not go into details of all the comorbidity, but they also should be assessed. So one more order which was issued very recently, particularly we are seeing that many persons, they themselves want to self-isolate at home, even though there is no suitable room and attached toilet available, particularly considering the urban slums and rural areas. So the State Task Force Committee on COVID-19 decided this, and an order was passed that all COVID-19 positives in rural areas and urban slums shall be admitted to COVID care centers to prevent spread of disease. Unless the home suitability is proven, they should better be isolated at COVID care centers. So what should be the instructions for the medical teams who are doing the initial triage and the follow-up on day-to-day basis? I think most of us might have been following up many of the patients already in home isolation, or might have followed up quite a few number of home isolation persons by now. So health staff shall ensure strict enforcement of home isolation. So a sticker shall be pasted on front door of the house. Neighbors shall be informed. 3-member team from the village board or resident welfare association, they also should be made aware, and also to see that they shall oversee the compliance. If the person is fined violating the protocol, they should be shifted to CCC, and also under Disaster Management Act, action can be taken. Link the person to telemonitoring center for follow-up. So this also is important. On one hand, we are telling free up our hospital beds, let as many people be at home if they are, they have facility and everything, but if they are not compliant, which is also an issue, we are seeing that the positive persons, they are going to banks to withdraw money, they are going to shops to buy something. So these kind of things are being observed. So we should ensure that strictly home isolation is being done for these home isolated persons. So other way is also as much important. So telemonitoring team shall monitor the clinical status. So the doctor shall monitor the person on regular basis from day 1 onwards. So the telemonitoring call, IVRS call is being done to every person in home isolation every day here. So that is, which is being expanded to other districts also. And doctor also should be watching for the critical signs or the warning symptoms throughout the period of home isolation. So, and the caregiver and all close contacts shall take hydroxychloroquine prophylaxis as per GOI protocol and as prescribed by the treating physician. So this should be under prescription from medical officer only. Telephonically or telemonitoring mode, check the person for development of new symptoms or deterioration. Particularly the oxygen saturation should be closely being monitored. Gloves, mask, and other waste generated. So the team should also educate the person regarding this. So how should they segregate the waste before disposing it? Inform the neighbors to be kind to the person, and also ensure the person stays in home isolation, and also not to stigmatize. So this was there last year very much, but we had expected that this has become a norm and people are used to it. But no, even during this wave, there has been a lot of stigma attached to this. So we still have to communicate regarding the disease. Concerned area medical officer shall report details about patient under home isolation to DSO on daily basis. So this goes into the state and district war room bulletins every day. So this data is also should be reported. And also the health teams, one thing is triage, and also the other thing which they should ensure is contact tracing. So they should try to identify who are all the high risk contacts, advise them 7 days of strict home quarantine as per Government of Karnataka guidelines, and advise testing for them on day 0. If they are negative, again they should be tested on day 7. Or if they are symptomatic, they should be immediately tested. So the testing of high risk contacts is very, very important. So this is also one of the responsibilities of the team when they are talking to the positive person. The secondary or low risk contacts, they can be advised self-monitoring and test only if they are symptomatic. So daily follow-up should be done, as I already mentioned, through telephone or few personal visits. Say if the person is doing well, there are no warning signs being reported, every 3 or 4 days, somebody can follow up through personal visits. If there are some warning signs, there are some symptoms, it is better that a team visits every day and follows up that person in home isolation. Last 3 days also, it is very important to assess whether the person is free of all the symptoms since last 3 days. So this is one of the criteria for releasing the person or discharging the person from home isolation. So at the end of 10 days, if no symptoms are there reported during last 3 days, then the person can be considered for discharge. So these we should be looking into it. So instructions for the person. So this is one of the most critical thing. Most of us know all these things, but it is still important that we keep communicating these to the persons, because many of the persons, as soon as they know their result, they are very anxious that they have turned COVID positive. So it is very good to communicate each time to each patient, even though it is small or minute detail. That's why I just elaborated it. I'll quickly skip through, but just pay attention. Strictly stay in identified room. Wear medical mask or N95 mask at all times. If you are alone, you can rest without face mask, but all other times, if somebody is there in the room or you want to interact with somebody, at the doorstep also, it is always advisable to wear N95 mask or medical face mask. Follow cough etiquette. Always maintain a distance of 2 meters from other people while taking food, like that. Hands shall be washed often with soap and water. Stay away from elderly persons at home. So the message is like strictly stay in the identified room. Do not go out of that room. So that is a stern message we should be giving. Don't meet visitors till you are released from home isolation. Take adequate rest and sleep. They should not be too anxious also. As I told, one of the criteria for referring to DCHC or DCH is pulse rate above 100 or 120. Say people are anxious also. Many a times we are seeing that pulse rate is 110. Then they call up, should we be in hospital? Our pulse rate is 110. So if they rest for 10 minutes, the pulse rate is back to normal. So it's like that. So they should not be too anxious also. As far as possible, sleep in prone position. Many of the IEC has also been communicated regarding this from Government of India and GOK. Do not share personal items with anybody in the house during this period. Strictly follow medical officer's instruction on medication. So this is also one of the most important thing. Medication, only follow doctor's advice, follow standard protocol. We have seen that steroid abuse which is going on, and multiple drugs which are available on Google, all are being taken on self-prescription over the counter at once. So that should be strictly communicated that a patient should not do that. Keep checking body temperature, oxygen saturation. So this is the most important and critical thing. So checking the oxygen saturation, not too frequently also, but at least thrice a day. Report promptly if you develop any worsening symptoms. Then stay well hydrated. So regarding the diet, we should give advice. So every time it is also important that since they are COVID positive, they will be anxious regarding everything. What should I eat? How should I stay? How should I protect my family? Okay, so all these things we have to reiterate every time. Avoid smoking, chewing tobacco, alcohol intake. Seek counseling services when necessary. So that is also as much important. If they need help, they should immediately call for support. Then clean and disinfect frequently touched surfaces within the room. Clean and disinfect the bathroom fixtures, toilet surfaces after every use. Gloves, mask, disposed tissue and other waste generated during home isolation shall be sprayed or soaked in 1% hypochlorite solution and disposed in a yellow bag. This is as per the revised CPCB guidelines, which I'll come to in the later slide also. Download the Arogya Setu Quarantine Watch app. Answer promptly the telemonitoring call. So this is also important. The district should also know what is the condition of the person in home isolation. So we should tell them, please answer the calls promptly. Then seeking medical support. Always keep phone numbers handy. So now there is an automated SMS also generated, which is being sent to all the persons in home isolation on what numbers they should call up. So we should also communicate to them. And they should resume to duty or work only after release from home isolation. Till then, they should only be in the separate room for isolation. Okay, so they should not go out even for work or buying something or drawing money, which we are frequently observing. So further medical advice. So these are the warning signs which they should keep in mind. Most important thing being the dip in oxygen saturation, difficulty in breathing, persistent pain, mental confusion, blurred speech, slurred speech, so weakness, numbness. So these all should be explained to them, that any of these signs you should immediately inform. A 6-minute walk test. So I think the recent revised clinical protocol of Karnataka has this recommendation of 6-minute walk test. So if there is a drop in saturation below 94 or an absolute drop of more than 4% or feeling unwell after 6-minute walk test, they should be shifted to DCHC or DCH as per the doctor's advice. Or if the person is elderly above 60 years, it will be 3-minute walk test. Recommended investigations, again, this is based on feasibility. It's not like mandatory for every patient in home isolation. Complete blood count, RBC, HbA1c if known diabetic, liver function test and renal function test, particularly if drugs are being advocated which are excreted through these routes, chest X-ray and CRP. ECG if HCQS is being considered. Then recommended treatment. So the latest treatment which has been updated, again, GOI and GOK have been frequently revising these treatments. This is the latest Government of Karnataka one. Tab ivermectin for 3 to 5 days, or hydroxychloroquine or favipiravir. Okay, so ivermectin should be taken on empty stomach, not advised during pregnancy and children below 2 years. Again, if symptoms persist for beyond 5 days, inhalational budesonide has been added in the national and state protocols. Others being zinc, vitamin C, paracetamol if fever, cetirizine, pantoprazole, or anti-tussive cough syrup, SOS, as required. And most important thing is all medication shall be taken under prescription of treating physician. So this has to be re-emphasized to the person every time, because there's so much WhatsApp forwards going on, so much available on Google, which they're like self-prescribing almost everything, including steroids. The contraindications for HCQS, these are the ones. Then if fever is not controlled with a maximum dose of paracetamol, then consult a treating doctor who may consider adding an NSAID, naproxen, twice a day. Systemic oral steroids are not indicated in mild disease. If symptoms persist beyond 7 days, then the doctor might consider with low dose steroids. Patients may perform warm water gargles and take steam inhalation twice a day. So again, this has been in and out of the protocol every time. So at present it is there. Other medications as applicable, pediatric dosages should be considered. Other persons, all the persons should continue their drugs which they are taking for other comorbid conditions. They should not stop those. And as already told, the GOI guideline also has hydroxychloroquine for all the household contacts and caregivers. And decision to administer remdesivir or any other investigational therapy must be taken by a medical professional. So this should not be taken for home isolation patients, only in a hospital setting, which has been re-emphasized again and again by GOI. Then recommended by State Clinical Expert Committee, tab colchicine as an additional NSAID also can be considered, but it is contraindicated in renal dysfunction. So this, I think, has been updated in the last week. So home care kit, which is being given in most of the districts. So medicines, ivermectin, vitamin C, zinc, paracetamol, cetirizine, pantoprazole. So how many number can be there with clear instruction and when to take. And pulse oximeter, mask and sanitizers. So the pulse oximeter being the very important one. This shall be neatly packed and provided as an attractive kit with instructions for its use both in Kannada and English. A special instruction shall be provided to guide the person about correct usage of pulse oximeter. So there have been quite IEC also regarding how to use. It's better at the first time if you can show a demo also, or they can see themselves how to check it. Some people get too anxious when they see readings which are below 94. So this is also important thing. As I told, an undertaking must be taken from all the persons in home isolation, just certifying these things. Daily self-monitoring, a chart is given so that they can follow up each of the things and keep reporting either to the telemonitoring team or the daily follow-up team which comes. A model diet plan has been suggested in the guideline also. So instructions to the caregivers. Now we have talked what all should we communicate to the patient or positive person. The caregiver is also as much important. So we should communicate all these things which have communicated to the patient to the caregiver also. Okay. And they should also take care of themselves. So two critical things. Always wear face mask, N95 or medical face mask when in same room with the COVID positive persons. The front portion of mask should not be touched or handled during the use. So this is also important to stress. Though many of us assume that everybody knows how to use a mask, these are small things which we need to stress. If mask gets wet or dirty with secretion, it shall be changed. Discard mask, those things. Avoid touching eyes, nose, mouth frequently. Practice hand hygiene frequently. Avoid direct contact with body fluids of COVID positive person. Avoid exposure to potentially contaminated items. Then as soon as you step out of a person's room, immediately remove gloves and wash hands with soap and water. Food must be provided to the person within his room. Utensil and dishes shall be cleaned with soap and detergent, and even the clothes and linen should be washed separately. Gloves and protective clothing shall be used when cleaning surfaces or handling clothes or body fluids. Only single-use gloves are recommended. Make sure that the person follows prescribed treatment. So whether the person is taking treatment, is watching out for warning signs, these are the important things. And whether the person needs counseling, even the caregiver can identify. Always keep handy phone numbers of medical officer or the team. Assess their health also. It is also important for the caregiver to monitor their health, because many times they also might be the primary or high risk contacts themselves. They also should be monitoring for any symptoms as recommended by GOI, hydroxychloroquine prophylaxis and vitamin C, zinc. Request the relatives, friends, neighbors to help with daily supply of essential items. So it is advisable that none of the persons should be going out during the home isolation period. And the family members, do not panic, do not stigmatize. So even for the family members, even though they are from the same family, these are important messages to be communicated. Keep the person cheerful. Ensure that the person is in strict isolation. Maintain distance. Strictly do not allow visitor till the person is released from home isolation. From the first day till the person is released, ensure that no one in the household leaves. So both ways. Do not allow visitors, and household members also, it is advisable to stay at home during the isolation period. Then all the family members shall self-monitor their health. The family members shall take hydroxychloroquine chemoprophylaxis, handy phone numbers, and remember the fight is against the disease and not the person. So these anti-stigma messages also are important. That person will get well. COVID is not a disease to stigmatize. So these things should be communicated to the caregiver, to the family members, to the neighbors also. So to the neighbors, do not panic, do not stigmatize, support the person, support the family during this time. And also other thing, as I told initially, also keep a vigil that the person in home isolation stays in home isolation. Maintain distance and follow all COVID appropriate behaviors. So waste management, I'll not go into too much of detail. As Dr. Sudarshan sir already told, I have put all details in the presentation so that it can be used as a reference, and also for your training purposes to cascade the trainings to the teams and also the persons who are supporting the persons in home isolation. Okay, so leftover food, empty juice bottles, disposable utensils, these all waste which are generated by the family members or the infected person should be collected along with other general waste in bags securely tied and handed over to waste collectors. Okay, so this is one important thing. The second thing is the face mask, glove, tissues, toiletries. So these should be considered as biomedical waste and they should be separated in collected in separate yellow bag. Alternatively, they can be sprayed with 1% sodium hypochlorite solution and disposed in a separate bag. So these instructions also should be provided both to the person and also the caregiver. So same applies to the mask and gloves of the caregivers and the family members during the period. Disposable of yellow bags. This is again the responsibility of the civic authorities or the BBMP. Waste collectors arriving at home may spray disinfectant on the solid waste bags been used for yellow bags. And these are as per revised guidelines of Central Pollution Control Board. Then coming to the important revision which happened recently. So when do we consider a person in home isolation as discharged? So previously we were telling 10 days of strict isolation followed by 7 days of quarantine. So now the 7 days of quarantine has been removed. So now the patient under home isolation will stand discharged or released from home isolation or home care 10 days from the date of symptom onset, asymptomatic from the date of sampling. So from there 10 days shall be counted. But criteria is that there shall be no fever or any symptoms in the preceding last 3 days. And one more important thing, there is no need for COVID-19 testing after the home isolation period is over. So this has been again and again re-emphasized because many people are still getting tested to make sure they are negative at the end of 10 days, which is not required. And the person shall be allowed to resume duty or work after satisfactory completion of home isolation. So as I told, a negative report is not required, but a fitness certificate can be given by the treating doctor or physician that the person has completed complete period of isolation and has recovered from COVID-19, or the telemonitoring team can also give a e-certificate. So wherever their workplace has a requirement that you bring a certificate after you recover from COVID-19, a fitness certificate can be given. If the person is in home isolation, is under consultation, daily monitoring by private hospital, they should inform concerned DSO. Disinfection of the house shall be considered at the end of home isolation period, particularly cleaning all the surfaces, floors, not spraying in the air and all, but spraying the walls up to 6 feet and all the surfaces particularly. And the floor shall be wet mopped with common household detergent. So this is the fitness certificate which I was telling, which is also there in the circular itself. Nobody should insist on having a negative certificate at the end of home isolation period, but the person, the doctor, medical officer, or the teletriage team can give the fitness certificate, which should suffice that person has completed period of home isolation. Coming to the COVID care centers. So as I already told, the COVID care centers act as a bridge between the home isolation and also the DCHC. So DCHC are those hospitals where oxygenation facility is available. At CCC, it might only be isolation, but particularly for those who don't have facility at home or those who need constant medical supervision. So at CCC, there can be some supervision which can be there. And also now, I think every CCC also has some oxygen cylinders or oxygen concentrators to support till the time the patient gets referred to the DCHC, particularly when all the beds at DCHC or DCH are full, just to stabilize for a while, they can also start on oxygen. So basic infrastructure, functional requirements I have elaborated here. Access consideration like parking, ease of access, ventilation should be well ventilated. it's almost all the requirements of how we think of a hospital, but without the facility of oxygen or any any other higher medical facilities. So there should be an administrative office, reception, logistics should be there, all the medications. So all the medications of home isolation are also applicable here. There should be laundry, the food, holding area, washroom, social support services. So these are also as much important. Security. So the security at entry and exits should be properly taken care of, particularly so that there will be no people who will be going out or who will be entering unauthorized. So every COVID care center must necessarily be mapped to the nearest DCHC or DCH. So this is one of the critical thing. Next critical thing is having a dedicated basic life support ambulance there station, that if anybody develops a critical sign, they should immediately be referred to the concerned DCH or DCHC. So that referral mechanism should be there, ambulance should be there. So again, recording and reporting should follow. Regular monitoring of all the patients should be done. So CCC will have supervision through the medical and paramedical staff, which we might not expect at home isolation, where team visits once a day or once in 3 days, or a telemonitoring call goes every day. So patients in CCC should be provided with symptomatic treatment. Patients should perform water goggles, steam inhalation. As I told, this is one which has been again recently included in the guidelines. If fever is not controlled, again, naproxen can be added. Consider tab ivermectin, inhalational budesonide if beyond 5 days. So all the treatment is same as per CCC under medical supervision. If oxygen saturation falls below 94 or shortness of breath, then immediately put on oxygen and arrange for referral transport. So that is why every CCC is also having oxygen cylinders or concentrators, so that the patient can be stabilized there and can immediately be referred. So medical care at CCC will be supervised through nursing staff and doctor. So nursing staff will check all the things each day. Adequate supplies should be there for all the equipments. In case of emergency, ambulance services shall be there. COVID positive persons shall be under the care of RWAs. So particularly, Government of Karnataka has also allowed the CCCs to be set up at private hotels through collaboration from private hospitals, and also at resident welfare associations. So there, the resident welfare association should take responsibility that the COVID positive persons healthcare is also being taken care of. So data reporting is also important. Checklist, I have just enlisted all which are there in the guidelines as a reference, which might be helpful if any of you are supporting setting up a COVID care center, managing a COVID care center. Again, required amenities, daily supervision by medical paramedical staff, food and nutrition, ancillary services, having donning and doffing area for PPE is also very important. Then daily reporting to the district surveillance officer. So as I told, the private CCCs are also allowed for operation through private hospitals. So private hospitals can tie up with private hotels for setting up CCC, though the responsibility shall become of the hospital for managing that CCC, but they should inform and seek permission from the district for setting up such an arrangement, and also regular reporting should be done. So these are also happening during the first wave and also even now, though as Sudarshan sir told in the beginning, the CCC concept was forgotten a bit as the second wave started, but now it has been strengthened very much. Having an ambulance and linking to the same private hospital is also important here, and resident welfare association also. So this is also seeking permission from the concerned district authorities, Resident Welfare Association also can set up CCCs with the same thing, but also ensuring regular medical care, also connecting them to the health team is also as much important, apart from all the things which I have listed. So one additional thing is step down. It's definitely not a step down if you consider sending to CCC, but in recent times we have seen that patients who have stabilized a bit at the hospital, who have been admitted to DCHC or DCH, their oxygen saturation was less or whatever, now they have been stabilized. They have stayed at hospital for 5-6 days. Now last 2 days they're not having any symptoms, the saturation is good. Now they can be shifted to a step down facility or a CCC as deemed fit. Okay, so that these oxygenated beds or the ICU beds can be freed up soon for other patients, particularly considering the positivity and daily new cases which are coming up. So these are also being set up in across, I think, all the districts now, whether such persons can be shifted to either step down facility or a CCC, even in both in government and private. Yeah, thank you. I stop here.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Lokesh, for a elaborate presentation. I think you have taken around 50 minutes. It is very good time management, and there are many questions in the chat box. You are very tech savvy. You can open the chat box and start answering. If there is anything which I can add on, I will add on. Over to Dr. Lokesh and chat box.
Dr. Rupashri,
Yeah,
kindly handle the questions from the chat box.
thank you, sir. Thank you, Mahendra, sir. Thank you all. And thanks to Dr. Lokesh, sir, for explaining all the points in such a minute details also you have explained. So even we have got comments in the chat box saying that you have cleared many of the doubts, which may look very simple, but when it comes to practical things, it's very important. So, and also for stressing upon the crucial role of triage centers. And also I thank Dr. Sudarshan, sir. Some of the questions he has also answered in chat box. Thank you so much, sir. But when I see the chat box question, we have questions related to other aspects. So I'll try to restrict the questions which are pertaining to this talk especially. So first question is from Dr. Devraj. He says like HCQ, sir, the prophylaxis is outdated, he says, and still why it is recommended.
Yeah, HCQS and ivermectin both are in the national protocol of AIIMS and ICMR and GOI, which has been recently released also, and also same has been put in the state guideline.
State guidelines.
Yeah, it is still there.
Okay.
Now let me
Many
just
of
add on.
the
Dr.
people have
Rupashri.
asked the role of.
Dr. Rupashri, I will just add on.
Yes,
So
sir.
regarding HCQ, ivermectin, you see, one of the basic tenet or philosophy or the foundation of public health practice is good for all, whereas clinical practice is best for few. And clinical practice is under a controlled condition in an institution, a hospital, whereas public health practice is in the communities, populations, which is not easily manageable. And during this pandemic, which is moving in waves and tsunamis, we cannot wait for robust evidence of the pre-COVID times. So as long as it is safe and effective to a given measured extent as decided by an expert committee should be good enough to consider for public health practice. To use or not to use is the discretion of the treating physician or the medical officer. So what is a guideline is a different issue. What is a individual practice is decided on case to case basis. So we should be very clear in our approach. So public health and clinical practice. So they are at some point of time, they move in different directions. So I have given a broad outline of how to approach this pandemic in the, even for that matter, even the vaccines. See, vaccines also, what is the evidence? See, please remember that. But because of such a large number of cases, people are becoming afraid. They are running helter and skelter and creating commotion outside the hospital demanding vaccine. Wait till July. When the cases come down, there will be no demand for vaccine. Please remember this. Over to Dr. Lokesh, Dr. Rupashri, Dr. Mahendra. Over.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Right, sir. Very well said. Sir, Gautam, do we have any hand raise option?
No, madam, no.
Okay, we'll continue with the chat box. Sir, a question from Dr. Sarvanan. Is medical kit is given only in Bangalore or in the entire state? I think it is given in the entire state, sir.
Yeah, it is in entire state. Again, depends on place to place. This is mostly in collaboration with the panchayat members, the elected representatives. So through them, it is being given.
Right, sir. Sir, after recovery, what is the minimum saturation a patient need to maintain after recovery? That again will be above 92?
Yeah, it is same, above 94 or more.
94.
That is a normal saturation for a normal person.
Okay. So here is a question directly from a patient. She says she's suffering from corona and she's a lactating mother, and how she should handle her. She has another baby which is 2-year-old. So this is a very
Yeah, it is very important to continue the breastfeeding also. Take precautions, always wear a medical mask, and then can handle the baby. And before, after handling the baby also, always follow hand hygiene. So taking all the basic precautions, breastfeeding can be continued. It's anyway, it will be better if one more caregiver is there to take constant care of the baby. But otherwise, taking all the COVID precautions using a medical mask or an N95 mask, breastfeeding can be continued.
Okay, Gautam, please allow the questions from the hand raise option. Professor A.K. Gnanachari, please ask your question.
Please.
Hello, good afternoon. This is Professor Dr. Gyan Chandran, talking from Madras. Very happy about Dr. Lokesh's presentation about home quarantine. He was mentioning about the use of ivermectin for the COVID positive cases. And basically, in my opinion, ivermectin is not an antiviral. Ivermectin is basically anthelmintic, which has been approved and has got some property to reduce the replication of viral load of coronavirus. So that is good information in this program. And another thing is latest, the DRDO has come out with this deoxy 2D glucose,
2DG.
which will be much useful in my opinion. So because this will reduce the replication of the viral load. Am I right, Dr. Lokesh?
Yeah, this will actually be helpful when 2DG is helpful when for moderate and severe cases. So when the oxygen saturation falls below 94, it is advocated, not in home isolation. It is in a hospital settings.
Okay, that is very good. Okay, thank you, doctor. I just want to say my information. Okay, thank you very much. It was a very good presentation, and I appreciate our doctor for arranging this program, this program, doctor. Thank you very much.
You, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, and it is for the information of the participants, because questions we are getting regarding the drugs which are used in the treatment. So we have exclusively arranged a session for adjunct and prophylactic therapy addressing the ivermectin, 2G, etc. So can we have another hand raise option, Gautam? Rangan?
No, you don't have, madam.
You don't? Okay. Okay. Sir, a question regarding the social stigma, as one of our participants have mentioned, in your protocol, you have said that 2 neighbors will be informed. So how to manage the social stigma if the neighbors are informed and maybe non-cooperative neighbors? Is
No,
it
this is important that neighbors are kept informed so that they do not cause like discrimination doesn't increase. So we
increased?
have seen cases that they have been asked to vacate or they have been asked to forcefully go to hospital. So when they are staying in home isolation, so that's why the triage team or the medical team which visits should. Just a minute, there's some prompt which is coming.
We can hear you, sir. You can continue. No problem.
No, sorry, some prompt is coming up. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so explaining is always better, may it be to the neighbors, may it be to the caregiver, may it be the family members. We have seen even the family members have stigmatized the COVID positive persons in some of the cases. So it is important to explain regarding the disease, regarding the isolation period, regarding the recovery and how many people, how easily have recovered and how to cooperate. So the fight is against the virus and the disease, not the person. So these things we should keep communicating.
Right.
So that is how the communication itself will help addressing the stigma.
Right, sir.
Dr. Rupashri, I have something to add.
Please, sir.
See, the house is suitable for home isolation. There is a caregiver also, but means eligible caregiver is there, but there may not be good understanding between the positive person in the household and the other family members. So even though his house is suitable, family is not agreeable. So the person will shift by himself or herself to a CCC. So that option is also there. And
Right.
another thing is, see, sometimes due to various other considerations, like he has come as a guest for a short period, and the household members are not ready to take care. So
Right.
then he will shift by himself. And another thing is, there are elderly and persons with comorbidity. So the person decides that he doesn't want to be a source of infection to other family members. So he wants to shift to CCC. So
Right.
it is not only the suitability or eligibility, various other social considerations also decide a person to stay in home isolation or go to a CCC. Over.
Okay. Yeah, very clear information, sir. Dr. Siddiq Sheikh, please ask your question.
Sadiq Sheikh.
Sadiq, sorry.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Just in my relatives, there is one patient. He's having a tuberculosis, and he's on the regime of TB, and he is RT-PCR is negative. So can he take the vaccine for that? And how to maintain to her in house or other thing? So this is my question.
No, the person
Hello?
is RT-PCR negative and having tuberculosis is not a contraindication for vaccination. But if the person is having active COVID disease, then the vaccination should be delayed for 4 to 8 weeks from date of recovery as per present guidelines. Tuberculosis as such is not a contraindication.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, right, sir. We have an hand raise option. Please ask your question, madam. Yes, please go ahead.
Sir,
Yeah, you are audible.
audible, sir? Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Sir, my father is 70 years old and he got COVID positive. And we have admitted in 8 days in the hospital. Then we got him in the home, sir. Past 10 days he is in the home only. We are here to go near to the room. We didn't go into no room also. When we are testing the COVID positive, we have done the blood test. He has the blood urea 70 and also creatinine also above 3. Then only we know he has some kidney problem. Whether when we can be near with him and whether we can possible to give the vaccination. If it is means when we can give the vaccination to him. We have so much of fear and doubt to reach him and worry about him. Any solution for this?
So if he has completed, he was discharged from hospital after the treatment for COVID-19.
Yes, sir. When we are before discharging, we have done again COVID test. COVID negative result came, swab test. Then after that only we have discharged. But he's in the home only. No other saturation problem is not there. Oxygen is okay. But he has a bitter taste, not able to take solid food. Fluid only like that we are eating.
Yeah, if he has been discharged from hospital after a COVID negative report, he's no more infective.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so he can be taken care of, and also other medical consultation which is required should be done as early as possible, particularly the renal problem which we have been telling.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so from date of turning COVID positive, the person, if asymptomatic or mild symptomatic, will no more be infective to others after 10 days. So that is why we have been telling that a negative RT-PCR is not required to be repeated at the end of 10 days.
Okay,
So
sir.
even if you don't repeat also, the person is no more infective. Anyway, you tested and that has come negative already.
Yes, sir.
Dr.
But he has a-
Naganandini, you are
Yes,
from
sir.
which place? From which place are you calling?
Salem, sir.
Yeah. See, please, Salem is a good city. Please consult your physician or a nephrologist and get further examination, clinical assessment done for his raised urea creatinine level. Please go
Okay,
near him, accompany him, and take care of him. He is not infectious and he needs a physician consultation. Nothing to worry. And he
Oh.
can also be given vaccine based on the physician's advice. There are no contraindications if he has not been vaccinated, but the guideline is 1 to 2 months after he has recovered from the COVID infection or disease. Okay. Is it clear, or you want some more clarity?
Clear, sir. Clear, sir. Clear,
Okay,
sir.
over.
Thank you so much,
Okay,
sir.
okay. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you,
Over
thank
to
you.
Dr. Rupashri. Yeah,
Thank
please.
you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Sudarshan, sir. So here it's a question from Dr. Deepa Vats. Sir, what about post-COVID care protocol? We are being given home isolation, post-COVID care protocol, because she has seen some patients, they die unexpectedly after the discharge. So any mention about home care post-COVID?
So post-COVID care also separate guidelines have been issued with the particularly the therapy, the exercises which can be continued. Okay, so these are also important, particularly for people who have stayed in home isolation or people who have stayed in ICU care for long time and then discharged and come. So for them, post-COVID care at home is also as much important. So those guidelines are there regarding what therapy should be done, how breathing exercises are prescribed. So if there are any residual symptoms, how to take care. So these all have been laid out in separate guidelines. So I think those are already available on the website, which can be shared also.
Right.
One more, Dr. Rupashri, I think. Who asked this question? Can you, who is the person? Yeah. You are from which place?
It is Dr. Deepa Vats.
Yeah, Dr. Deepa Vats, you are from which place? No, we will help you. That's all. We want to give clarity to your issue.
She is online.
Dr. Deepa Vats is from Delhi.
Okay, Dr. Deepa Vats, it is, absolutely nothing to worry. You can find out which is the nearest post-COVID care clinic.
Yes.
Many hospitals run a post-COVID care clinic which have a separate entrance and an exit other than the COVID area. So please take your whoever is the patient who has recovered from COVID to the post-COVID care clinic, and they will assess and provide all necessary guidance. More about it, it is available. Post-COVID care guidelines are available from BGI Chandigarh, which is very near to you, and also from AIIMS, and we can also provide from Karnataka government website. Over.
Thank you so much, sir.
We can even consider a separate program on post-COVID care, sir.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
that will be good. That will be good.
questions are there on post-COVID care. Yes, sir. Thank you, Mahendra, sir. It's a nice thing. So, Dr. Venkatesh P, please ask a question.
Yeah, with regard to the vaccination, there are a lot of dualities in terms of the restrictions.
Sir, can you speak a little loud?
With regard to the vaccination with the Covaxin as well as Covishield, so what is the time space that one has to maintain in the first and second dose?
So for Covaxin, it is at least 4 weeks gap between the first and second dose. So the recommended time is between 4 to 6 weeks of the first dose, second dose should be taken. For Covishield, as per the latest GOA recommendation, it is 12 weeks. So second dose should be taken 12 weeks after the first dose.
Thank you.
The window period is 12 to 16 weeks after the first dose.
Right, sir. Right.
Sure. And one more question, sir.
Yeah.
With regard to those who have recovered from COVID infection and who come through home isolation, when are they supposed to take the vaccine?
The persons who have recovered from COVID-19 can take the vaccine 4 to 8 weeks after recovery. That is as per current GOA recommendation. Vaccine can be taken 4 to 8 weeks after recovery.
Right.
Thank you.
Right, sir. We have another hand raise option. Your name is not very much.
Yeah, Dr. Shashibhushan here.
Hey,
Oh.
Dr. Shashibhushan, you want to
Yes,
ask
sir.
us question?
Welcome.
Okay, welcome.
No. I'm not asking any question.
It was given as
Congratulations, Dr.
Sorry for that. Yes,
I'm
sir.
just clarifying on the post-COVID part.
Yeah, please. I did not see you. Yeah, please.
Somebody was asking about the post-COVID.
Yeah.
We have a guidelines already in the state which
Yeah.
is taking care of not only the rehabilitation part. When it comes to mental health, so we have taken care of every part in the post-COVID. So you can access to that. It is available on the website, Government of Karnataka. So post-COVID guidelines is already there. So well explained of everything.
Right.
What has to be done when it comes to mental issues, when it comes to breathing problems, everything has been mentioned. So that's what I wanted to tell.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. Shashibhushan.
Anyway,
Because the
Mahendra sir
question,
is
Thank you, sir.
planning
sorry.
to have this
Dr.
extensive
Rupashri, I just want to clarify.
Please, sir,
Dr.
please.
Shashibhushan, thank you for clarification because the lady who asked the question was from Delhi. So I
Okay.
referred her to Chandigarh and also
Oh.
to the Delhi hospitals and also refer to the GOK guidelines, which are primarily prepared by you. I will compliment openly, I am aware. Over to Dr. Rupashri.
Okay. Right. So thank you, sir. Sir, again, from the same person, Deepa Vats, she had actually asked for a hand raised question. Madam, you can ask question directly if you wish to do so. Or I'll read out the question.
Hello. Yeah, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am. I'm here.
Please do that. Yes.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, everyone. It's a wonderful session. I enjoyed each and every slide and the knowledge we are getting on this platform. My question was, I wanted to know, like, I've heard if somebody is infected with COVID once, he or she needs to get the vaccine, only 1 dose of vaccine, not 2. Is it right, sir?
No, as per present recommendation, once recovered from COVID, 2 doses can be taken as per recommendation. The first dose should be taken 4 to 8 weeks after recovery. The second dose as per individual vaccine. If Covaxin 4 weeks after the first dose, Covishield 12 weeks after the first dose.
Dr. Lokesh, let me clarify to that person. See, there are 1 or 2 references which says, I have read that a COVID recovered person may not need a second dose. Some 1 or 2 references are there. I have gone through them, but they are publications and reports. But reports and publications apart, we have to go by the guidelines. So guidelines stipulate 2 doses, even in those who are COVID recovered persons. Over.
Right, sir. Thank you, sir. We have Dr. Mansoor Ahmed. Please ask your question.
Hello.
Go
Hello?
ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to ask one question about the people with disabilities. They could be, intellectual disabilities, autism, or neurological disorders. So, are there separate guidelines for people with disabilities? I think I hardly saw any guidelines on this section. I think it's very important to focus on this vulnerable group also.
Yeah, there have been guidelines for managing persons with differently abled persons and also persons with intellectual disability, what you are suggesting. But COVID care as such, I think I have not come across any specific guidelines on that.
Yes. I think that is one more need which we can address. Maybe even
Yes,
COVID guidelines and vaccination guidelines for people with disabilities.
yes, vaccination guidelines are being addressed. I think COVID care is also important. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Darshan
Doctor,
sir,
I
any
think
comments on
Dr.
this?
Rupashri, I will tell.
Yes.
See, recently, based on the directions of High Court of Karnataka, now it is being contemplated to provide vaccination to those who have benchmark disability at their homes only. Persons with benchmark disability is those who are having 60% and above physical disability. These persons in the due course will be vaccinated at home as per the directions of High Court of Karnataka. Over.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. So there's a note on mental disabilities also, sir. This physical disabilities.
Yeah, when mental, I have not come across any guideline. We have to manage it as per as per local circumstances and in the best interest of the person who needs such service. Yeah, over.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Rajat Garg, please ask a question.
Yeah, thank you. Firstly, I would like to congratulate Dr. Lokesh for the excellent presentation and also others for answering our queries, Dr. Sudarshan and others. So my only point is that, see, as you know that the vaccination is going on and it can occur only at some pace because as the birth cohort or overall the target beneficiaries the number is quite high, and we have got a limited number of healthcare workers who can vaccinate people. So maybe we can have a strategy in which the people from among the 18 to 45 who are the earning members who have to go out, they can be vaccinated in the first place, and the other members can be vaccinated later. So something needs to be done to address that concern because a large number of population is affected in this age group also. So I would just like to ask the comment from the experts in this regard. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. This is more regarding the vaccination and vaccination groups which are to be considered. So as you know, the vaccination has now been opened up or liberalized by Government of India, that every person above 18 will be eligible for vaccination. So in the private centers, it is already going on that every person above 18 are being vaccinated. In government centers, it is being taken up gradually. As you told, the vaccine availability is also an issue. So based on the available vaccine, based on the priority groups, and also whether vaccinating above 45 is more judicious or 18 to 45 is again a different debate by itself, considering 80% of the total mortality, even as on today, has been among 45 plus. And even now, if we are seeing persons who are in ICU or who have expired during last few weeks during the second wave also, have been those who have not vaccinated and are above 45. So that's again a separate debate, but efforts are on to vaccinate both the groups, above 45 also and 18 to 45. But the priority still remains, the first priority is 45 plus. Thank you.
Right, sir.
No, let me speak more forthright.
Yes, sir.
Whatever vaccines we have is for 45 plus only. When we get more vaccines, we will vaccinate 18 to 44. Because I am an advisor, I am neither in WHO nor in government as an official. I am speaking outright. those who are in urgent need of vaccine, please go to the select private hospitals who are providing the vaccine for a fee, and that is another option which may be considered. So we do not have vaccines at the moment to open up for 18 to 44 years is my statement. Over.
Right, sir. Thank you, sir. Dr. Hima Shweta, please ask your question.
So, ma'am, am I clear?
Yes, please go.
Yes. Yes, as sir told that till we know that the person is positive, the whole family is already exposed to that person. So what do we do in that situation? Like the whole family is isolated in the we just leave that family like in a house, or we tell that person who is infected to be isolated in a room.
So the person who is already tested positive will be isolated in a separate room. If other persons who are high risk contacts who have been exposed to that person should also stay in quarantine. So stay wearing protective masks, staying as far as possible from each other. So this also has to be taken care in between the family members also. If all of them has been the high risk contacts, but anyway, they as per the state guidelines, they are to be tested immediately once they are identified as high risk contacts, and also at the end of 7 days. So then after the quarantine period of 7 days also, they'll be tested again. So even between these intervening 7 days, if they are negative, then also they should be following COVID appropriate behavior even within the home. They can stay there, and also the COVID positive person will be staying in a separate room, not mingling with any of the persons.
Right, sir. Sir, so in this context, I had a few questions from our colleagues and friends. So immediately, as she said, a person gets positive. By the time he would have walked in the house completely, he would have touched everything. So is there anything like, especially the cleaning aspects, like in US also, they say that immediately if a person is, if a kid is tested having a flu or anything, immediately they'll ask everybody to use a new toothbrush, because they keep any such precautions, such things.
Yes, wherever a positive person has moved around in the house, by the time say giving the sample and testing positive, even within that intervening period which you are referring to, it is always good to disinfect all those surfaces, clean the floors once. So disinfection of the surfaces is good. And also the other persons to also take care during this period of home quarantine is also as much important.
Right.
And getting tested.
Tested, yes, right, sir. We have again a hand raised by Dr. Mansoor Ahmed. Please ask your questions.
Hello?
Yeah, you're audible, sir.
Yeah, people already talking about the third wave are saying that the children are most likely going to be affected in the third wave. Does this have a scientific rationale, or is it just like, something which is being told like that?
It is actually based on the experience from other countries at present, and also the previous pandemics which have happened, we have observed that multiple waves have been there. So whenever the disease agent finds a sufficient number of susceptible cohort, so it is tends to again peak with another sort of infection. And for this COVID in particular, we have seen that from our experience in other countries already, which have gone through multiple peaks. So it's not that the peak will come, it is like may come. So nobody is like telling this will happen, this is how it will happen. It's just like astrology, we can tell, but there are specific epidemiological models also who work on it, who work on the data, who work on the people's behavior, and seeing how the economies are opening up, how COVID appropriate behaviors are followed during the intervening period, and how the disease agent behaves. So there are
Yes, sir.
specific models also, and also experience from other countries at present.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Models can be forecasting the third wave, sir. But what about the children being affected? Why they are saying only children mostly will be affected?
Again, the rationale behind that theory is like, when the vaccination has begun, the vaccination is majorly meant for people above 18 years at present across the world, and few of the countries have also started vaccination of above 12. So when majority of the population has been protected, say vaccine majority prevents against the severe disease and death, and some vaccines are also claiming that they prevent transmission up to an extent. Okay, so the children are the ones who are not protected and also not exposed much till this period of time.
So that
One
is
more thing from my side, Dr. Mansoor Ahmad. You
Yes,
are
sir.
from which place, doctor?
I'm from Mysore, sir.
Mysore,
So
MNC
you are
are-
local. So
Carry, sir.
government of Karnataka is soon constituting a expert committee to address this issue of third wave. I think
Right,
you
right.
might have seen it in the newspaper and also on the television
Yes, sir.
channels.
I have.
So
Yes.
this issue will be very seriously and very comprehensively be addressed by government of Karnataka. Oh,
Sure. Right, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll take up this last question, but it is again a repeated question, sir. Any kind of other conditions like epilepsy, or if a person is having more than 140 BP or any other condition, I think you can just repeat, like any condition, it needs to be addressed and then taken the vaccine, or taking the vaccination. Any
Oh, for vaccine they are asking, or home isolation?
No, sir, for vaccine.
Okay, so for vaccine, the contraindications are any history of anaphylaxis, severe allergic reaction to the first dose of the vaccine or any other vaccine before, or any other injection or drug, or say pregnancy and lactation. At present, the pregnancy or lactation are contraindications. Other than that, there is no absolute contraindication as of now for vaccination. But if they are having any comorbidity, they can see if the comorbidity and is under clinical control, and they can take the vaccine. So there's no tests required to test that comorbidity, but they need to be sure that is under good clinical control, if for particularly persons with comorbidity, and then take the vaccine. That's not a contraindication.
Right, sir. Right, sir. Mahendra sir, shall we continue?
There is one hand raised.
We'll stop with
Veena
that. Rajput.
Rajput.
Yes, sir. I have one question, sir. As sir told that it is contraindicated in lactating mother. If mother is lactating only at night, sir, can she get vaccinated, sir?
So at present, there is no scientific evidence how safe it is for the baby, or is it like the safety of the vaccine. Though there are reports from various countries that high risk pregnant women and high risk lactating women have been administered the vaccine and no serious adverse events have been observed. Since there is lack of scientific evidence as on date, Government of India has put under contraindication. So as per Government of India guidelines, vaccine should not be administered till the lady is lactating. Thank you.
Sir, one more thing I want to tell. Sir, most of the people in our state, Chhattisgarh, the lactating mother also taking vaccine. So how we can aware them, sir? It is one of the question, because in my knowledge, 2 or 3 people, those who are contacting me, they have taken vaccine.
So that is what, as I explained, if a person is a high risk, say a healthcare worker, or a person who is in close contact with a COVID positive person frequently. So such persons in few countries have been administered COVID-19 vaccine and no serious adverse events have been observed. But there is no scientific evidence as on date. That is why it is told as a contraindication. So we should follow what Government of India tells at present. So when the guidelines change, we can advocate the same. So how we educate them is through communicating with them. So we tell that pregnant women and lactating women at this point of time, it is a contraindication.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Dr.
Thank you,
Veena
sir.
Rajput from Chhattisgarh, you have said many of your lactating women have been vaccinated. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so don't worry. So this will provide as an evidence for future. Just to keep a watch on them, and nothing will happen as per empirical evidence. So, and you give information that nothing happened for posterity. Okay. So
Okay.
yeah. So you got my point. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So as Dr. Lokesh has clearly stated, in certain
Yes.
countries and in certain contexts, high risk situations, assessing the risk of COVID and benefit of vaccination in the context of lactation, lactating mothers have been vaccinated, and we have to follow up these women and see whether any adverse outcome is there. If there is no adverse outcome, it is a good evidence for future vaccination in lactating women. Thank you.
Oh, that's so nice. Thank you. So we'll take up this last hand raise option from Professor A.K. Gnananand. Please ask.
Thank you, Doctor, once again giving me opportunity. Regarding this questions from the audience about this anaphylactic shock in case of vaccination of this Covaxin or COVID. As of now, there is very mild side effects only, like pain and fever. There is not much of adverse reactions so far observed in India of Covaxin or Covishield. So people need not be afraid of this anaphylactic shock, which was observed in the case of penicillin those days. Okay, so as far as in my opinion, they need not be afraid of anaphylactic shock. They can give it. And one more thing, as I was discussing in the earlier forum of this webinar of this same forum, now people are telling that we have to give the first dose is prime dose, which will have immunity for 90 days, and then you go for second dose, which will have immunity for long time. And there may be chances that the WHO or protocols may change. We have to go for additional third booster dose also. Okay, and another thing is now the government of India has given vaccination for 18 and above. It's a good promising prospect, so that our entire population will get vaccinated, and so they can develop the antibodies to resist against this coronavirus. Okay, thank you. This is my message to all the audience. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
I now request our Honorable Vice Chancellor to please provide the concluding remarks. Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Mahendra, Dr. Lokesh Alahari, and Dr. M.K. Sudarshan, and all other team members of Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences for this wonderful lecture. The series of lectures is becoming popular day by day as I see the number of participants going up, and that shows how people are hungry about knowledge, and they keep looking for such information from any corner. And when a university organizes such a program and experts do come and give their comments and opinion, there will be a lot of people to go through and also listen to them. In that pursuit, I think our this thing is now successful. We have been continuing to do this job. We will continue to do in the future as well. I should personally congratulate Dr. Lokesh Alahari for giving us updated guidelines on home isolation and COVID care center. Though the number of questions were more on vaccination, I was listening to that. Anyway, the doubts are cleared. Many of them are benefited out of that. And the largest chunk of patients, COVID positive patients, they are housed in either home isolation or in COVID care center. It's only about 10 to 15% or even less than that go to the hospitals. So that being the case, we need to continue our efforts. We need to concentrate our efforts more so on home isolation and also in COVID care centers, wherein many of these patients can be prevented from going from mild to moderate disease to severe disease. That's where we need to do that. And in this effort, I think now more and more COVID care centers are being opened, step down centers are being opened, more oxygen concentrators are being provided, and oxygen lines are also being provided. So this is what is happening in the scenario. Probably the same thing must be happening everywhere in the country. But Karnataka has always been a pioneer in implementing such innovative things, and home isolation being monitored by students of RGHS is a very pioneer thing, very innovative thing. And I think probably first time in the country this is happening. And many patients are being counseled, many patients are being monitored by this home isolation technique. And we need to be concentrating our efforts on that particular thing to yield good results, to yield better results. I think the coming days probably will all contribute a lot by concentrating more on these home isolation patients. And if they cannot be isolated at home, they should be brought to CC centers and taken care of. That will yield good results, that will yield maximum results, and also prevent patients from running around helter-skelter for searching oxygen beds and other things. So our main aim is to see that mild and asymptomatic patients remain so in that particular segment itself. They do not deteriorate further into moderate or severe cases. And that can happen only with good care, good monitoring, and early picking up of cases who are worsening, whatever reason. So that can happen best with home isolation. Thank you so much. You have highlighted all these points so much, Dr. Lokesh. I also thank personally Dr. Sudarshan for being there and taking all the questions. And I'm sure all the delegates were benefited with this particular thing. We'll continue to, RGHS will continue to be arranging such programs. I request all the delegates to be a part of this and encourage us as well. Thank you so much. All of you take care. Bye. Goodbye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Before we go to the vote of thanks, I request Mr. Gautam to please display the details of the next program.
Yes, sir. The next program in this series is on mucormycosis in the COVID-19 pandemic. The speakers are Dr. Nagaraju ji, Dr. Ravi Shankar, Dr. Prashant, and Dr. Chinmayi. Please do log into this program, which will be held on May 21st, Friday at 3 p.m. Over to you, sir.
Dr. Dayanand, please.
Yes,
for
sir.
your vote.
Okay, thank you, Mahindra and Draupadi. On behalf of Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences, I take this opportunity to thank our Honorable Vice Chancellor and Registrar for giving us the opportunity to conduct such programs. I thank on behalf of the Vice Chancellor and Registrar, today's speaker, Dr. Lokesh Alahari, for his excellent, very clear and informative talk. And I thank our Dr. M.K. Sudarshan, is the Chairman Task Force COVID-19 Government of Karnataka, for his initial remarks as well as his adding up remarks during the question and answer session. We thank you very much, sir. And we thank all the officers of the RGHS who have participated in this program. And we thank all the participants who have participated in this program. Thank you, one and all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sudarshan,
Thank you,
sir.
everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Lokesh. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Mahindra and everybody.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, Dr. Dayanand.
Thank you, sir.
Gautam,
Thank
you
you.
can
Dr.
close the
Lokesh.
meeting, please.
Dr. Lokesh and Dr. Shashibhushan.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And the Honorable Vice Chancellor. Thank you. Thank you.
Lokesh, you can close the meeting.